Hey everyone, today's guest is Onkar Birk, who serves as Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at Hilton Grand Vacations, a company leading in vacation ownership and shared ownership properties globally. Onkar joined HGV in 2022, bringing deep expertise in cloud, analytics, and enterprise systems, and previously led technology teams at Alert Logic and Avaya. More than his credentials, Encore has a remarkable journey from leaving the home at 18, navigating hardship and risk, to pioneering technical innovation in early and emerging cellular data markets, to now leading a transformational technology vision at HGV. Today, we're going to explore resilience, leadership wiring, and how personal adversity shapes tech leadership today. Onkar, welcome to Parallel Perspectives. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate being on as well, and look forward to seeing where this conversation goes. But
I
glad
am
to be
too.
here.
Yeah, this will be a good one. Let's dive right in with an important discussion. So, you shared with me how at 18 years old, you left home and you found yourself sleeping on floors and dealing with pretty much nothing. So, very interesting perspective to hear how this worked out for you. So, how did that chapter in your life shape who you are today?
Yeah, it is a when I look back at it, partially I look back at it and think, what was I thinking at the time? But I do remember it, and I remember it in quite a lot of vivid details. I mean, it was a stage in my life where back in the UK, and I just wanted to get out and find my way, find my own path in life, and see where it took me, and carve out my own future and make my own choices, live with my own regrets. And at the age of 18, you think, well, surely not. Surely you don't feel like that. But in growing up, we always kind of strove to carve out our own identity. Me, my brother, and my sisters, and that was my way of sort of doing it. So pack a bag, and then just say, I'm gonna go and take what little savings I have and make my own way in life, and off I go.
It's pretty impressive that, most people at 18 years old can barely hold a job. The fact that you did it on your own and built up to who you are today has to be a fantastic journey. Um, is there a memory from that time? I know, think way back, that still drives you now, like a core memory.
Yeah, there is. I mean, I remember when I packed up, and I'll give you a little bit of a snippet into the background. It was, looking for a place to live, and I came across these adverts at the time, and one of them was, if you can help out and fix up this house, you can live there. So, it was like, oh, this is great. This is going to cost me nothing, and all I got to do is fix up this house. So I show up, suitcase in hand. I'd talk to the guy back and forth, and this is, phone call, no, no emails or anything back in the day. It was a phone call. You put in the money in the slot and you dial the number, and you get hold of someone. So, show up at the house, and it was a wreck. There's nothing there. I mean, it's floorboards, and
Wow.
there was a half working sink, and no bath, and it was like, oh my God. And the guy's like, look, you got water and you got gas, and I'll help you, and we get this place built up, and you can live here. I'm not in a rush. Just take your time, and that was home for me. So, mattress on the floor, and
Wow.
and I hate to say it, but yeah, it was not a situation that most 18-year-olds want to be in. But for me, it was like, okay, I've come from a great place. I had a, great house that I left, but it was like, all right, this is me. This is where I'm going to start from. And as much as it put pressure on me, it was a very quick realization of a starting point, a baseline, that I had in life, and this is where I'm going to start from. It was a stark contrast from where I came from, um, but it was a great rehearsal for the rest of my life to deal with, hardship, and really know what that felt like. My 300 pounds worth of savings was rapidly depleted, and I really had to figure out, well, where do I go from here, and what do I want to do in life, and
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that I'm sure that builds resilience, and I'm curious on because I have a construction background a little bit, and it going into a position like that, you kind of don't know what you don't know, but you also don't know how strong you can be because you're tested and tried, and you put yourself in a hard situation, but you worked your way through it. That's not easy to do, but it teaches you something about yourself. It teaches, and I'm assuming you built resilience. Or did you have construction skills going in that, or did you just literally have
no,
to
no,
have to learn?
absolutely not. You know, there was a little bit. That's a lie. My brother and my parents, they did do construction, so I did have skills, so to speak. I did know my way around various different tools, and do the odd handiwork here and there. But I wouldn't say they were construction skills. They were more like there's an extra set of hands. Go and grab me this, and go and hit that, and go and saw this piece of wood, and it was a bit of that kind of extra hands rather than skills. But you're right in you say resilience. It does build up, and it did build up resilience, but more an acceptance as well of where you are, and an understanding and appreciation of where you are. And I think that probably was the thing that it taught me now when I look back without a shadow of a doubt. But even at the time, you see where you are, and you understand and appreciate that this is your lot unless you change it. um and it drove me, it absolutely drove me to get back into college, get my degree, get my master's, find a niche area that I can excel in, and go and get a job, and drive my career and just not look back. And I'd love to say it was the money that drove me, but it really wasn't. It was the fact that I just didn't want to be in that situation again. Um,
Yeah, and it's not. I think also it's about resilience under duress. Like this is one thing to have resilience, but another thing to have resilience under such extreme duress. And you had mentioned 300 pounds. Since we're recording in the United States, that is not how heavy you were, I assume, but that is the the reference
Sterling.
to where you grew up. So why don't you tell the
That's
audience
right.
kind of where you're from? Obviously, your accent is not from South Georgia, so
No, I was born and bred, as they say, in Darlington, a small town in the northeast of England, and spent my life there in school, and good schools, that I'd been to. So I don't want to come across like, hey, the background was a certain image that you might have in your head. I actually went to really good schools. I went to a grammar school. I went to a private military school. So I actually went to some great places as growing up. But it was more the fact that I knew I had to make my own future, and I wanted to. It was a desire. It wasn't a force-fed thing. And how do I handle that stress and that duress during that period? It was self, inflicted to some extent, through error, mistake, bad decisions, but also the environment I put myself in. So, um, again, it made me really realize what I could or could not do, and
exactly.
how I handled stress. And when you're young, you don't really understand the world, so your stress is limited to what you understand. So I will say that it was tailored to the amount of knowledge and experience I had. So my
Mm.
stress was what um, that I've not got enough money to buy an extra drink, because you can drink at 18 and get out there and enjoy myself. It was things of substance that just weren't as relevant to me at the time. They weren't consequential, but it made me learn how to go without. There was no one there to help me, other than the landlord, who would occasionally pop by and say, "I've done a bad job and I need to redo redo some of this work." But I lived there a year nearly,
That's amazing. Yeah, and
rent free.
I think it's important for folks to understand what it is to live without, and then you can really appreciate and accelerate when you have more, and when you can continue to, grow in your career and grow in your income. You appreciate it more, and it's richer,
Yeah,
and I think you get just a happier life through that. So,
yeah.
um,
And I didn't come to the US until much later on in life. So, when I was there in Darlington, I moved around, went to Leeds, spent some time in London, So I'd moved around some cities, but ultimately after that year, and this was the big telling moment. After that year, I realized I really want to get my degree. I
Mm.
really want to get my master's, and I came back home. I came back and said, right, I've made a bit of money,
Yep.
and I had, I can afford to go to my local college, university in England, and I'm going to go and go to school again. I'm going to, do my degree and master's. But I was really determined to do it. It was not a let me go to college and do a degree for the sake of doing a degree. I really want to get it done. To have something in my back pocket.
Yeah, that's sleeping on a mattress and hammering nails is probably changes your perspective on
Yeah.
your future as
When
well.
yeah, my father used to say it's like when you climb down the ladder and you get to the bottom rung, your feet touch the ground, that's it. That's as low as it gets. The only way for you to go is going up. And I know that's common, but that's how I felt. It's like I got on the ladder halfway because that's where I started in life. But I actually went down. I went down to the ground floor and put my feet on there and said, "Oh my God, I don't want to do
I don't
this."
like this. It's too cold.
Yeah,
One of the things that's impressed me about you Encore, some of your past is you were one of the first technical product managers for cellular data in the UK.
that's right.
You were working at, I think you said BT Mobile when data speeds were just megabytes per second, and
Yeah, kilobytes per second.
yeah, kilobytes per second. What did being on the edge
Yeah.
of that innovation teach you? It's you're really right on the edge of the new technical innovation. What did that teach you?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you in two ways what it taught me. One, from a hindsight point of view, is seeing kind of technology just absolutely change the environment you're in. I mean, bearing in mind when I worked there, in BT Mobile at the time, which was Cellnet, and it became BT Mobile, and eventually became Telefonica when it got acquired. But it was O2 and then Telefonica. But I think there was like 500 or 600 people working there, and everyone was on cellular. So everyone had voice, but no one really had data. So what do you do with a dot? What do you do with a few dots? Text messaging was not around. Everyone had pages. Text messaging was relatively new. And there's a couple of things that sort of came to mind. No one really knew what the technology was going to do. Everyone knew that, hey, data is going to change the world. And, I remember doing a show, and we had the house of the future. And so, like, everyone's going to have these cellular phones with data, and you can turn on your lights, and there'd be, a couple of guys behind fake walls, turning lights on and off. Because obviously the technology IoT wasn't about. Bluetooth was in its very early infancy, was just about to be launched. Um, but you couldn't do any of this stuff. But we had all these ideas of what can you do. So it taught me a couple of things. One is, just how far you can take it, and what you can come up with. And I'll share with you some of the products that we had at the time, both the failures and the successes. Two was there is failures. Like, some of these ideas are not going to go anywhere. They're going to fail. And they may spur on another idea or another idea, another idea. Eventually you get the winning idea. But you are going to have some failures along the way, and you have to accept that with emerging tech. Um, and then the other thing is that you constantly have to learn and evolve. It's like there was no stopping the learning. You had to learn. And we came up with some. I was the technical product manager for BlackBerry back in the day. Launched that in Europe. And I still remember it was that I launched it. I was part of the launch for Europe as technical product manager for BlackBerry, and no one had one. It was a new device. Um, we worked on they worked on Mercedes and their cellular GPS system, GSM system triangulation to find out where the car is, and that was the first one they put in the S class on the Mercedes. So there's these ideas as a technical product manager you could work on because the technology was so broad, and there was failures. Um, there was, we tried to do heart monitoring system remotely with data because you had so little data to work with. It's like, what can you send? It's like, well, when someone's got a pulse, we can send a signal to say he's got a pulse. And then when the pulse stops, well, then what are we going to do? Well, we never really thought that through. It's like, well, can we take patients and move them into the house and monitor them remotely? It's like, yeah, what can you monitor? Well, not a great deal. And then, but there's consequences to that. And of course, that idea wasn't going to go anywhere, but it tested and proved a theory that, can you actually send other signals through? And that led to technology, which was British Gas, for example, sending data on meter readings for your gas meter. That was built in the ThinkPad, the Toughbook. I think IBM Toughbook at the time. So we built in a cellular device on that. There was water shortages at one point, and in the UK, as well as shortages of beds in the hospitals. But there was water shortages, and we built this antenna system and put it under manhole covers to run a current from one manhole cover to the next along the pipe. And if water broke, it would break the signal and tell you, would calculate how much distance it was, and where to dig to fix the pipe.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
It was super cool. It's like, great idea. Let's do this, and we know exactly where to dig. We can cut, loads of man hours out. The problem was the antenna stuck out of the manhole cover, and people would come along and steal them, and steal this equipment, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's going on? We've got a signal that's gone down. We better send an engineer to fix this leak, and actually someone just stole the equipment.
Oh my
That's why
gosh.
the signal's gone down.
That's funny. A
Um,
lot of people don't appreciate all the bold ideas that go into building innovation and new technology. There's so many. There's one, two, three, maybe four successes. The rest are a couple hundred failures. And so,
yeah.
being a part of that process, being one of the leaders as a part of that process, through whether it be cellular or what you're doing now at HGV, how did those early years kind of shape your creative confidence to where you are today and not being afraid to fail?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. I mean, it goes back to the early point we talked about just resilience and dealing with where you're at in the situation that you're in, and then and what you ultimately turn to, or what I ultimately turn to, is like, how do we turn this into a success? Even the failures. You've heard probably many people that say fail forward or fail fast. Ultimately, all comes down to the same thing: is did you learn something from your failure, and can you move on? Now, you need to be in an environment that allows you to do that, right? I mean, some people are in environments where you fail and that's it. That's it. It's one and done or two and done, and you can't afford any failures. So you have to contain the upside and downside of that failure as well. And that's what I guess it taught me, even in that environment. Rapid change in technology, possibilities were all over the place. Are we going to fail? Yes, but if you succeed, and where you succeed, it could be it could be groundbreaking, and totally change your environment, and people will help you build on that as well. Like-minded people will circle around you and say, how do we take this to the next step? You don't know everything. So all of a sudden now you're married with people that bring their skills and expertise, their experience to the table, and help you grow an idea to make it real. And when I say like-minded, for me, like-minded means, do you also have the ability to want to make this work? Do you want to make this work? That sounds like such a simple statement. Um, but oftentimes, it requires you to accept that failure over and over again to still want to make it work. Um, so it's not like it's just one time. It's like, do you want to make it work? Yes, I absolutely want to make it work. There you go. You got a whole bunch of success in front of you. It's like, do you want to make this work? Yes. Oh, but you failed. Then what? Do you still want to make it work? Yes. Second time around, but you failed again. Now what? Do you still want to make this work? Sometimes you got to bail and say, you know what? I can't make this work. The acceptance of where you are, the reality of your feet hitting the ground floor. But sometimes it's like, yes, I can still make this work. I have to think differently. I have to bring in different people with different values, different ideas. I have to accept conflict in disrupting what I think is a thought process. But that's okay. It's healthy, and it'll take me to a success. But that is tough. I'd love to say I do that all the time. I don't. I'm human. Um, but I do have to remind myself to do that. And less so as I've grown older, but more so when I was younger.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about who you are, though, Onkar. It's the passion that you have to have for these really extreme, innovative technology changes and life changes. If you don't have the passion to continue to push forward, it's really tough to even find that level of success. So it shows not only just your resilience, but your passion that you put into your work. Um, You've described your ability and importance to emotionally process and adapt to change with speed. You've even said that by the time your head hits the pillow, you've already accepted where you're at. So the kind of
Yeah.
emotional agility is it's that's hard to master. So the ability to make those fast and quick decisions, adapt to smaller major changes, such as moving across countries, is key to your success, I think. And so, how do you navigate change so quickly, and what does that unlock for you as a leader?
Yeah, I've given that a lot of thought over the years because, I self-reflect. And I'm going to be harder on myself than anyone else is going to be.
Mm.
And There's a couple of things that I've learned about that statement. One is, as I work with my team, and it's a great team as a whole, but as I work with my team, and I can be hard on them because I self-reflect on myself, and then I say, guys, you gotta look at yourself in the mirror. And some people take that the wrong way. They take that as an accusation, and I take that as a no, it's a self-reflection moment. Like, we're not here to point fingers at each other. What we're here to do is say, look at ourselves and say, what can I do better? And sometimes you don't know. And the what can I do better is just a case of I need help. So, when I look at change and going through it quickly, I recognize if I can do something, can I have done could I have done something different? Um, and do I learn from that kind of mistake? Like, do I learn from that? Should I have brought someone else in? Should I have consulted with someone with more experience, knowledge, etc.? Did I make a bad, decision on 70%, 60% of the data, and I just made a bad call, and I've got to live with that consequences, and I didn't think through all the downstream impacts that that decision has made, because you make bad decisions, bad calls all the time. But really, for me, managing change is more emotionally being prepared for the fact that this could be a failure, and if so, what? What does that lead to? And then, like I said, if you thought through enough of the consequences, you get up in the morning with an inspiration to do better, because it's not dwelling in that moment, because the moment is gone. And there's nothing I can do about that moment. The only thing I can do is sort of recover. Um, so I do really try to get through the change cycle as quickly as I can, and encourage my team to move through that change cycle as well. There's no good in sitting on it and dwelling on it too long.
Well, and I think from my experience, and probably you would say the same, is it takes practice. Like it, sometimes it's uncomfortable to get there, and then over time you kind of build that muscle to adapt and emotionally just kind of determine how you move to that next stage. And I love how you called it the change cycle, because it truly is, over time becomes a cycle. As as you're kind of an, I would say, one of the leaders in the technology space, navigating that emotional change, are there routines or practices that you rely on to make hard decisions faster and also maintain emotional balance? Are there any routines or practices you put in place?
Yeah, well, there's a couple, and this may sound a little bit cliche on some of the things they're saying, but I think they stand the test of time. One is building an environment of trust within your team. And I would say you have to start there, because if you build that environment of trust, you accept when that change is going to lead to a bad outcome, and it's almost like you've got group therapy to get you through it, right? So your team will carry you as much as you will carry the team to move through that cycle of change quickly, to say, where do I go from there? So trust for me in the team, and across the leadership, is probably the most important thing that I put value on. So, once you've got that, you've got a level of maturity as well that you can bring to that and say, okay, I've got trust. I know that everyone is going to help me get through this change cycle. Now, what do I need to do? You can have that moment to self-reflect and say, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to get through this or the next time around? So I don't end up paralyzing myself from this moment, because a lot of people will do that. They will shy away, they'll paralyze, and they won't go back to it again, right? It's like I was saying earlier, it's like, do you still want to do this? It's that moment, it's that self-reflecting moment. It's like, do you still want to do this, or have you lost your own faith? Um, so I think that the team helps you in that fashion immensely.
Yeah, building trust inside of a team, that's extremely important. And I think it's a tough team for a tough thing for a lot of leaders to grasp on how to do that. What do you have
Yeah.
any, go ahead. Well, I was going to ask, do you have any advice for other leaders who kind of struggle with prolonged transitions or decision paralysis?
Yeah, I mean, the number one advice is always, how much data do you need to make a decision, right? So how much do you trust that data? And data is the people you connect with, the information, the reports that you have, and the downside and upside of the risk. Like, once you have those kind of key elements, you will make a decision. Paralysis on decisions tend to do a lot more harm, because it really leaves everyone guessing. So understanding the time it takes, and understanding that you have to make time to think through the consequences of that decision. Now, I say that now, if my team listen to this, I'm sure they will, and they'll reminisce me saying to them, make time to think. Like, think. Take the time to think. Now, again, you take that for granted, but in a busy day, let alone work and social and kids and dogs and everything else going on in your life, and parents in my situation, there's so much going on. Do you actually take the time to think? And usually it's, well, yes, but not to the extent that I need, because you just don't get the time, and you can't string together a chain of thoughts to draw a conclusion to help you navigate and move forward. So when do you take that moment to think? Is it, for me, it's first thing in the morning. I get up in the morning. I think over my sleep. I don't know if that's sleep or thinking. I don't know which one it is, but whatever one it is, I wake up and I take, half an hour, and I will think through kind of my problem of the day or the problem of the previous day, and I treasure that time. I'm very, very fortunate to my wife accommodates that time for me. She's
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
this is my half an hour. It's like, I need it. I need it just to get my head screwed on straight, to think
Yeah.
through things.
I think that's
Um,
fantastic advice, Encore. Like, just it's a simple piece of advice that a lot of leaders just forget because they're going me personally, like this is good advice for me to continue to kind of remember is I go so fast every day. Sometimes I forget to just stop and process and think about not only just, what are the challenges that we're facing, but the impact of those challenges to other people on the team or externally. So simple advice, but absolutely critical to, continuing to drive impact in an organization.
So what I also see now as well, when it relates to sort of working with a team and the trust and the time to think, is a lot of people have gone remote, and it's harder to build that kind of connection, that continuous connection with folks, so that they can help you and work with you to think through that. If you've got trust and you've got that connection with your team, when you think, you have a sounding board that you reflect with, and mature your thoughts with, and that takes time, takes a back and forth. I often get accused by my team is, hey, you've started with an idea, and it's they tell me this. I'm very conscious of this, but you start with an idea and you sort of mature this idea and you work with it, and then you disappear, and then you come back a week later, and then you've gone from A to like T in the alphabet. what the hell happened to the rest of the alphabet? I mean, how did you get from A to T? And I have to stop and then rewind and take them through that journey with me, um, which is the other part of the equation. Because after you think and get through whatever change that you're going through, you have to execute, right? So, and you got to bring people along to get them to the point they execute. So that's the other thing that I often get told is. It's like, how did you get from point A to point B or C, D, E, F? How did you get there? Because you just went away and you thought about it. So that there is a downside to take the time, think, but also take the time to come back and communicate
Mm,
your thoughts.
yeah. I remember in a previous conversation, you'd shared a pretty striking leadership lesson from a training classroom full of kids.
Yeah.
Can you explain what happened there for us?
Yeah, it sort of ties back to, I talk about having the right team and and a sounding board. But one of the things that you got to know is um, you got to know that team, right? You build trust, but that takes time. It was in British Telecom, and it was a leadership. I was part of this leadership group, rapid leadership track or whatever they called it back then, and they did a number of exercises, and one of the exercises was, look, we want you to go into a school, into a classroom environment with a whole bunch of kids, and get them to draw this house. And it was like simple drawing, young kids, 5, 6, 7, that kind of age group. And they said it was time. There's a clock on the wall. You got 20 minutes, so it was timed kind of event. It's like, okay, fine. There was this person with a notepad there taking notes while I was in there. The teacher stood by the side, and I walk in, already nervous, but walk in, see all these kids, and my immediate thought is, look at the clock. I got 20 minutes. I got to get this done. So I start drawing up this house. It's like, look, kids, we're going to draw this house. I've got my back to them. I'm drawing this house, and
Because you're
it's
an expert
pretty simple
construction worker,
thing.
by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All my skins. It was perfect CAD diagram, on a whiteboard. Um, so I'm drawing this house up, and these, and I turn around and trying to engage the kids at the same time. It's like, look, I'm drawing a chimney and trying to make it fun, and no one's doing anything. They all got paper and pencils there, and they're sort of looking at me, and the odd kids there scribbling down, doing something, but I don't quite know what because I'm at the front of the class, and then I'm in panic. It's like 5 minutes ago, 5, 6 minutes ago, and I've explained to build this house, and panic is starting to take over. Because this is an evaluation. I'm in a leadership fast track, and this is an evaluation, and I want to be successful, right? It's the drive is there. So I thought, I'm going to go and start, getting close to these kids. And that's what I'm missing. They can't hear me. I'm not interacting with them. I move closer to the kids, and I start talking to groups of these kids. And they're scribbling. Some of them are just looking at me and giving me a straight. To this day, I can see one kid staring at me. Um, and the odd ones starting to draw the house. It's like, oh, I'm making progress. What about the ones that aren't? I got to spend more time with them. So I start getting and the clock is just ticking
Oh
away at
man.
this point. Uh, and it's gone. Anyhow, time runs out. They say, thank you, step outside, let's talk to you. And they sit me down and say, okay, well, what happened? And, it's like, well, I went in there and I think, I don't know, maybe I should have spent more time here and there, and maybe you should have done this. And it's like, okay. And did you know about the kids that were deaf?
Oh my
It's like,
gosh.
what? It's like, the ones that were
That's
deaf.
crazy.
It's like,
So you
no,
the whole time you did not know some of the kids were deaf.
no. They were deaf, some of them were, and some of them had speech impediments and didn't want to speak. They were conscious of it. I did know, slightly that some of them had eyesight issues. That's why I moved a little bit forward
Okay,
for some of
okay.
them, but I didn't realize to what extent. And the lesson to this day that I take, and I must have been what, 24, 25 at the time, around that age. But the lesson I learned to this day is understand the capability that you're working with. because if you haven't taken the time to know the team that you're working with, how are you going to move forward? Like, how are you going to get this done? You're going to do it on yourself. And that was a just a massive, both a slap in the face. To this day, it hurts
Wow.
that I made that mistake. But such a valuable lesson, that
It's a great reminder.
it is. It really teaches you, to really take time to understand your team. It's one thing being a leader and working with your peer group and managing upwardly or working upwardly, however you want to describe it. But if you really don't understand the team and its ability to execute, and where their pain points are, then how are you going to make the right decisions? Um, you're never going to know everything. Teams get bigger, et cetera, et cetera. But it is very, very important
Yeah. To,
lesson.
that I mean that is a really good story, and just a guttural the instinct that you assume everybody knows everybody's on the same page as you and the capabilities are there. Actually taking the time to go understand those capabilities of your team. Some may have challenges, some may not, and strengths and weaknesses is something that leaders just constantly forget. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and I
such a
think I
great
think
testament. Yeah.
some of these lessons as well, they don't, I mean, certainly I look back at my own, even through my childhood, it's like it doesn't dawn on you what you learned until you get to the moment in time where it's applicable. And I say that because when I was much younger, I'm just sharing another story with you, and my father bought me a Casio watch, the old, gold kind of, watches with three buttons on him, red numbers pop up. At a time when the Casio watches were around, but they were expensive, and not many people had them. And I could like take a watch apart and the mechanisms and put them together again, but I hadn't, and my dad knew I had a fascination with watches, so he got me this Casio watch, and it probably cost a pretty penny at the time for him to get it for me. I was young, very young. I went upstairs. I remember sitting on my bed and I took this watch apart, and and it's like, how does this work? Like, I don't like how this is new, completely new insides on this watch, and I couldn't put it back together again. Like I just, and I spent ages trying to figure out how to put this watch back there. I literally broke this watch twice. I've done this, by the way. I'll share the other one with you, but I couldn't put this watch back together again. So I sort of, put what I could back together again so that it looked like a working watch, but there's no lights on it. It didn't actually work. And for a while, no one noticed. And then my dad, it's like, well, where's your watch? It's like, oh, it's upstairs. Well, go and get it. As parents always know when you're hiding something,
Uh-oh.
right? So it's like, okay. So you go through the million decisions in your head. It's like, oh my God, panic stricken. I must have been. I was very young at the time. Like 8 years old or 9 years old. It was around that kind of time. So I put the watch on and come down, and he's like, he looks at it, and immediately he already knew I was hiding something, and it's like, what happened? Doesn't work. What happened? And then I was like bawling, crying. Like I just couldn't contain myself. I was like bawling, crying. All the guilt was coming out. It's like, I couldn't figure out how this worked. I took it apart. I couldn't put it back together again. And, I'm so sorry, and blah, blah, blah. And, blah, blah, blah. Dad didn't say anything. He just like, okay, okay. That lesson sort of, that memory sticks with me as a negative, right? It's one of those moments in life where it was such a negative, you sort of, you can take it as a pure negative at that point, and I did. It was like a bad negative for me. What that eventually taught me was that perseverance. It's like, well, you know what? You couldn't put it back together again, and you sort of gave up. It was like your dad accepted it, you accepted it, and I didn't bother going back to figure it out. I look back at it now thinking it probably did work. I just need to spend a little bit longer and
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. It probably did work fine. I didn't do that much damage to it. Um, but it taught me a couple of things. It's one is, be more processed about how you deconstruct something and reconstruct something, because we do that a lot in corporations, in companies, in technology, and when we're solving problems, like you've got to deconstruct what you have to reconstruct something new. And secondly, it's like don't give up so quickly. You find a way through it. I did the same thing when I was in college because I bought a PC when there was only two PCs in the library at the time, and I ended up working, or I was working to fund college, and saved enough money and bought a PC, Windows PC. I can't remember what it was, 3.0 or whatever it was in Windows. But I bought a PC, and back in the 5 and a quarter floppy disk times, again took it apart, and and couldn't make it work again. And now you look at it and it's like PC is relatively simple, but yeah, I mean back then they were a little bit more fragile. I eventually got it working again and fixed this PC, and now I knew what the connectors were like and where the memory went, and you couldn't mess around with stuff back then, and how corrupting data was a thing, and I could figure it out. I ended up making a lot of money out of that because once I told enough people in college that, hey, I could recover data from a disk, people were knocking on my door in the middle of the night saying, I've got a dissertation due. Can you help me? And I've lost my data, and there's, the library's shut, and
Oh, wow.
they kicked us out, and you got to help me. I've got to do something with this for tomorrow morning. So it helped me fund getting my master's
Oh, wow. That's
at the
cool.
time. Yeah, it actually made me a decent amount of money. But again, it was, stringing the two kind of stories together. It really sort of helped me of like think through things and persevere a little. There's enough reasons to not do something. There's not enough reasons to do something.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the future for yourself and for HGV. So, where is your energy taking technology and customer experience at Hilton Grand Vacations just in the next few years?
Yeah, well, going back to what I experienced before and seeing, what's happening now with technology, I think we're really at this inflection point in technology where the world is changing around us, and it's going to change, quite rapidly. Now, rapidly you know, is something that has yet to be defined with the AI world, right? So what is rapid when it relates to this technology and AI? But we're very much seeing the early starts of it, and then it's going to be adoption and acceptance after the hype is sort of gone, and the reality comes out of what you can actually do with AI. Um, but AI is definitely big, and it's big. It's high on my agenda and radar about thinking through what can we do with AI as it relates to the customer journey that we have for our customers that are looking to go to a resort, and because the journey starts very, very early on. And the journey does not necessarily start with one individual. And so you think about yourself, when you go on holiday, and I know this is true for me, you start very early thinking about, well, where do I want to go? But it's not just where do I want to go. There are several people involved in that decision. It is not I. It is where do we want to go? Um, and now you think about it from a data point of view, that's a lot of information that as individuals we sort of figure out, and it's usually one person in the family. I'm sure there is always a couple of people that get together, like me and my wife. It's like, hey, let's really plan this vacation out. It's usually no. You plan this vacation out, and I will participate in this vacation, and it's all good. It's like,
Sounds
you know,
familiar,
um,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and and if you have kids, it's like let's just plan it around the kids, and we'll take what's left, right? We'll just take the rest of it. So where I see technology going is starting off to help people really understanding, what do they need out of that vacation, from all of it. And I think, personalizing and using AI to help personalize that information, so that it is useful to you as an individual. Um, and it is curating a vacation around you. I think is where I believe everything is going, and where I want to take the technology is certainly with Hilton Grand Vacations, to help people maximize their time they have, and their time is valuable. I talked earlier about just taking some time to think, and we don't even take time to that. So I think the most, and when I'm on vacation, it's like I don't have meetings back to back. I can really think. But taking the time to plan your vacation and trying to, get it right, that is an effort for a lot of people. So AI can really help that and help personalize that, and then it really comes down to the service and experience that you have throughout your vacation. What's it mean? You're not just going to a location, a property, but you're going for the environment around you. So what is available to you? What's accessible to you, both financially and from a time allotment point of view, and suitability for your family point of view. So there's
Sure.
different dynamics that come into that matrix. Um, but we're really starting to build together, the vacation that ultimately we want to be a long-lasting memory of the perfect vacation around who you are as a unit, and not just where you want to be. So that's one of the big bets for certain for us is where AI is. I will say there's a lot of companies out there that have good stories around AI, but they don't have the user case around it. They don't know what to do. They know the technology's there. It's like back in my days in cellular. It's like we know we could send, data from one cellular phone to another. We don't know what to do with it. So you tell me what to do with it, and I'll send the data. My job back then was figure out what to do with it, and there's a bunch of failures that come with that until you find success. We're at the same point with AI. There's a lot of technology out there. It's like you don't know what to do with AI. And there's probably going to be a lot of failures until you find your success for that user case with AI. So, my experience from back then has taught me a lot about, hey, don't rush into some of these failures. Just take the time to think through, because you're going to have far more failures. To minimize those failures, and thinking through what is a successful outcome and what can you achieve with the technology, and more importantly, what can you achieve with the team with the technology? Because if you don't know your team, and you're working with new technology and you don't know your team, you're effectively scrambling with very few data points to try to make a decision and try to be good with that decision, and make peace with that decision. That's you know going back to all the comments that I've sort of made. When you tie these three things together, you have to trust your team, you have to innovate and accept failure in a trusted environment that's around you, and take some risk and accept that. And you have to have the time to think through that and sounding boards and bring the experience in. So there's a lot that comes together, but I do think we can revolutionize the way people think about utilizing their time to maximize it for their vacation, for them and their family or their nuclear family, and etc. So I'm looking forward to spending the time, finalizing that.
Yeah, I love the way you said that. How to best utilize time, because that HGV is clearly on the cutting edge of this. You guys are leaning heavily into technology. We constantly see at NRI exactly what you said, companies struggling with the technologies there. We just haven't figured out how to use it yet. So I agree with you there. So let's shift gears with a few rapid fire questions so listeners can get to know Onkar beyond the CTO. So, first question, and these are quick ones, right? Um, if your life had a theme song, what would it be? And I want you to think about if you're walking into the room with your team members at HGV and a theme song's playing in the background. Here's Encore. What's it going to be?
So mine actually is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Kansas Carry On My Wayward Son.
Oh, yeah, that's a great
Um,
song.
so that would be the that's the one that always plays in my head. Probably tells you probably more than it needs to, but
Yeah,
it's that kind of perseverance again, for a song. But
very
that's the one
fitting.
that I love that song.
Yeah, very fitting. That's fantastic. All right, next one. One skill you wish you could instantly master.
Playing any musical instrument. I know it's not one skill, it's several, but if I could master that, because it's the exact opposite of who I am. I'm a deconstruct, reconstruct, methodical, or at least I like to think of myself like that. Maybe someone will argue with me. And music is the exact opposite of that. Well, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I don't have that skill. But I would love to have the ability to just create melodies out of nothing. Um, just through that raw talent.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. I have zero musical talent, so having that skill would be great too. Instantly would be even better.
I
Um,
do have a second part to that. Is I also
okay.
like to be a great golfer. That is that is
I'm also a terrible golfer,
that is
so
something that
we
I
have a
would
lot in
really
common on
enjoy
those two.
doing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right, next one. Very fitting to HGV. What is your favorite travel spot, whether you've been there or not, and who's in your ideal travel party?
So my favorite travel spot, in fact, I have a number, but Japan is without a doubt my favorite travel spot.
Okay.
And I wouldn't even narrow it down to one area in Japan. It's like the whole experience of Japan was definitely my favorite travel spot. But equally, the Rockies in Colorado is also one of my favorite travel spots. So stark contrast between the two. Um, but both of them bring me a great amount of pleasure in
Yeah.
different ways. Um,
Interestingly enough, I will be in Japan in 36 hours. So it's funny you said
wow.
that. Yeah, I'm flying out on in about 36 hours and I'm going to take the journey. I'll be there for 2 weeks, meeting with the board of directors and some of the global executives. But I'm also going to take a couple of days to go travel around. So yeah, I love Japan as
Now
well.
we got some great resorts in Japan.
Oh, you have to shoot them over to
But
me.
yeah, I will. I'll drop you a note with them. But it's a great experience when you go there.
Cool. All right, last question. If you were to create a cocktail in your honor, what would be in the Onkar Burke?
I don't think there's probably a cocktail out there that you can actually, patent anymore, right? They're probably all
Yeah,
gone.
that's true.
Uh, but for me, it would be the perfect gin and tonic with a twist more sour. I don't know how I'd quite create that, but I'm a gin. I like gin and tonic. Maybe it's the Brit in
I
me.
think it's the
I don't
Brit in
know,
you for sure. It's definitely not the
but
Florida in you.
it's not the Florida in me now. There's two things I really enjoy, and one is a good old gin and tonic. I know it's not a creation of such, but every time I make it, it is. And secondly, and this is a straight up neat bourbon. It's so I go from a G&T and the American the 20 odd years in America has certainly made me appreciate bourbon. And for all those fellow Europeans, well, certainly UK folks, Scotch has definitely taken a back seat to
Oh man,
bourbon. So it's number two. But they're my favorite drinks of sorts. Not quite cocktails, but
yeah, that's great. Bourbon is. I can see that for you. Simple, smooth, but strong. So that's a
yeah,
good fit.
got a
That's a good
distinct
fit.
flavor.
All right, last
Yeah.
one. Here we go. Onkar, what is one message or insight you hope listeners carry with them from our conversation today?
The one thing that I would say is, work in an environment which allows you to, take an accepted amount of risk with the ability to be um, with the ability to learn from that experience as well and grow from it. And that's I know that's extremely hard to do, but um, working in a trusted environment, I think just speaks volumes because you can do volumes when you work in an environment like that. And look for it. I know it's not a luxury that everyone can afford in life from a work perspective, but it is the advice that I give my children, um, and it's the advice that I give myself on a regular basis. Be where you can flourish, and that is sometimes a hard choice to make.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic advice. My takeaways are building a trusting team, but also taking the time to think, and taking the time to understand who you're dealing with and understand the characteristics, strengths, and weaknesses of the team so that you can adapt to that. All fantastic advice, Onkar. I really have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for your time today and for reminding us that resilience, rapid adaptation, and knowing your own wiring can shape not just your career, but your contribution to people and organizations and communities that you serve. So if you're out there, you're wrestling with friction, remember your past wiring can be your future rocket. And until next time on Parallel Perspectives, keep building boldly. Thanks again, Onkar.
Thank you. I appreciate it.